Yeah, g'day everyone and welcome back to the TryPod Live with Winnie and Clarkey. We are live all over Facebook, YouTube and Instagram, so g'day to everyone. Please get involved with the live show. We are here to preview Anzac round, give you our best bets and talk footy with you all in between each game. My name's Dana, I'm from Clarkey's Rugby League column, and I am joined every week by Winnie, who is the founder of TryPod, a podcast that has a 9-year straight winning record. Winnie, we've got a big show today. But we do go into round 8 with a 14-14 record, which to no one's surprise, I know you're not happy with because you have had much stronger records than that in the past. So I wanted to open the floor for this episode, say g'day to you and give you a chance to sort of reflect on what has been the NRL season from a best bets perspective so far.
Yeah, you always say I'm the founder of TryPod and always feel like, and so was Alexi. Shout out to Alexi, founded it with me 10 years ago. And you always talk about the 9-year winning record, which I'm very proud of, but people are probably sick of hearing about winning records. If it's not a winning record this season, everyone says, what have you done for me lately? So I will address that. But 14-year anniversary of the Storm salary cap scandal. Did you know that, Clarkey? I saw a comment today that the Titans are paying tribute to that because they're not playing for competition points this year either. Sorry to throw a little jab early. There's an issue with the podcast feed. I want to say that, housekeeping. I'm aware of it. I've been working around the clock. Where we upload the pod, how it usually works, it is not showing up in Spotify, iTunes, maybe elsewhere. So I'm sorry. And obviously you're hearing me say that now. It means you found us on Facebook and YouTube. Maybe it doesn't bother you, but for those who do just like the audio file, we're working on that. We're aware. We're not hiding from you. Okay, last week, round 7, really bad round, as I covered on the recap. 1 and 3 on best bets. Lost the mixed matchup as well. Lost the SGM on Friday, 1 leg, like only by 1 leg, but that 1 leg wasn't close. We did win Winnie's Kitchen, same gamer at $9 on Sunday. And I'm not going to repeat the recap, but again, it was 4 out of 4 best bets that were better than the closing number. And I want to just talk on that in terms of punting theory, what people can take forwards. Like, why do we try and get the best line available? And why do we try and play these bets at the right time? Because this year, if you'd played the TryPod bets live when I gave them out, you'd be 14 and 14. But if you played them all 2 minutes before kickoff, you'd be 14 and 14. We haven't actually had any advantage of beating the market once this season. And typically, that's unusual. Like, I would expect every one in every 15 to 20 games is going to be close enough to land on the number that you will turn a loss into a win. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but a 10 and 10 out of 20 becomes 11 and 9. Suddenly that's 55%. That's profitable versus not profitable. So out of 28 bets this season, it is kind of crazy that beating the market for the most part where we have has not made a difference at all. Slightly disappointing, but I'm also just disappointing in that record, and I get it. Like, I hear all the chat around the league. Brad Arthur's on the hot seat. What's Todd Payton doing? Adam O'Brien has struggled the last couple of weeks. People are even saying Trent Robinson needs to show more. I even heard people questioning whether Ricky Stewart's the man in Canberra. You get called out for poor results. I'm no different. I've received my fair share of feedback, understandably so. So let's jump into the best bets nonetheless. I have 3 to share tonight, and how it works, just as a reminder. I watch every minute of every game, done this for a long time. I deep dive every matchup. I come up with what I think are the most likely bets that will win for the upcoming round of footy, paying $1.80 or better, and I share them with my reasons why. You choose if you back them. If they win, you can feel smart because you agreed with me. And if they lose, you can blame me. It's my fault because it was a dud tip. So that's how it goes. Any response from you, Clarkey, or you want the round 8 best bets?
Mate, I love the breakdown there, but no, let's draw back the curtains and reveal our best bets for round 8.
Okay, this probably won't surprise too many people, but it's just the way I see it. On Anzac Day, I'm going to play Roosters -5.5 at $1.90 on Sportsbet, Ladbrokes, and Neds. And for me, it's pretty simple. It's a designated Dragons home game, but it's at Allianz, so no advantage to Dragons there. And the Roosters are still clear superior side to me. I think they're 3 and 4. Don't want to fall to 3 and 5. Dragons have been better this year, 4 and 3. And I'll talk about, my read on St. George this year because I knew they'd be friskier than others expected, but they've still burned me a couple of times. But with Walker back and getting Dom Young back, not only is that a weapon on the wing, but shifting Swaliti in, you kind of strengthen 2 positions. It's enough for me to play under a converted try. Then I'm going to take a team no one wants to touch in the Parramatta Eels. Plus 10.5 is just too many points for me, and that is the line on better at $1.90. I know there's that risk factor that this is a team that could be in turmoil. And I talked about Arthur just a moment ago, but personnel-wise, you finally pick a genuine halfback for this side. I know Manly's full strength. Manly's better at home. But are they really that far apart? Para got the win a few weeks ago, and Para still got enough to make a game of this. I give Parramatta a live chance, and they could be a team that actually really has a point to prove after being so embarrassingly destroyed, as my best bet was, in Darwin. To get a chance for redemption, 10.5, I will take that. And I'm also going to take West plus 6.5 first half, $1.88, Ladbrokes and Neds, which I am aware will be the 4th straight week I will fade Brisbane. I'm also aware Adam Reynolds and Payne Haas are back this week. Will they hit the ground running? We'll see. Ezra Mam and Selwyn Cobbo both out, just weakens Brisbane a touch back. And then I think Tigers are the type of side that actually competed really well for 65 minutes against Penrith and has a lot of positivity around the club this year. And playing at Campbelltown, it's a case for me where you're given the away side you're giving West too many points at home in a game that I think they can at least keep it close. I hate betting against a fully fit Reece Walsh, but by taking the first half, at least when the defenders are at their most tired, I don't have to worry about what happens in the second half. I just need West to step up from the start this one.
Yeah, mate, I like that you've changed the tactic a little bit with the Broncos there, but you are a brave man for going up against them 4 weeks in a row now. Of course, round 8 is Anzac round, so on behalf of TryPod, we want to extend both our sincere thank you to all our servicemen and women, and that's from New Zealand and Australia, who have contributed to our freedom and made both of our countries the beautiful countries they are today. We will get to our round-specific preview in just a moment, but before we do, as we do so very often, let's hear from the bookies' perspective. Here is our resident CEO, Mr. Tristan Merlehan.
Tristan Merlehan here from Top Sport. It was a funny old week last week. It started off with a lot of upsets early. We had a really good start of the weekend, particularly Friday night. The Dragons getting the result against the Warriors, and then of course the Dolphins coming from nowhere after the Eels started pretty well and then blew them away. So good start of the weekend, but it went a bit pear-shaped from there. All the favourites on Saturday, and in particular my Titans just getting beat by Manly, and obviously very high-scoring affair, and all of the favoured options winning. So that was very, very ugly on our same-game multi with all the popular try scorers lobbing, and then the Sharks later in the week. That was a very, very popular commodity as well. Moving on to this week, obviously another exciting round of footy. Looking forward to the Anzac Day matches on Thursday, and the Warriors getting a home Anzac Day match, which will be really good to see. Hasn't been a stack of movement, a little bit of movement in the Dragons-Roosters game. That's gone from 6 out to 6.5. The other game that we've seen a bit of movement is the Tigers going 13.5 into 11.5. Obviously a couple of outs there for the Broncos. And then the other game, which we've got some movement, is probably on the back of the news breaking earlier today, is with the Sharks, but the Raiders have gone 8.5 into 7.5 and short of the plus. So a few little moves there, nothing probably unexpected when you see them on the team lists, and looking forward to another weekend of football, and obviously gamble responsibly, and good luck if you're having a punt. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much to Tristan for that, but I am disappointed. Our game of Where's Tristan this week unfortunately ends as he's back in the office now, but that's fine. Let's jump into it game by game. We kick off with a Thursday triple header. It starts at 2 p.m. where the Warriors host the Titans at Go Media Stadium in New Zealand. The line is set at minus 11.5 against the Warriors, who will be without Kurt Capewell, but Dylan Walker does return. No changes of note for the Titans, who have covered the line in the past 3 games they're winning, and they are showing some clear signs of improvement, but they do meet a Warriors side that is not only coming off a very disappointing loss, but they're also hosting their first ever Anzac Day game at home. So how do you see this one playing out?
Sorry, I've lost the graphic, but anyway, I put that comment up there. So as you said, 11.5. Well, New Zealand's cost me the last couple of weeks when I took them as a favourite. And as you said, the Titans have actually covered the spread. We were on them for one of those, and we haven't gone against the Titans in the span where they've actually covered the line. And I'm sure plenty of other punters have. Unless you're going against the Titans head-to-head, you've survived the last couple of weeks. You've just gotten over the line. This is a really tall task, though, to play New Zealand in their first ever home Anzac Day game. And I think New Zealand qualifies for my designation, good team off a bad loss, because while they did give up the first 3 tries to Manly and then have to chase that game, and then they gave up five tries in a row against St. George, where that game totally flipped. But I still feel like there's no reason why New Zealand can't defend more similarly to the manner they did last season. And I also still have faith in the Warriors' attack. I thought Brimson did quite well at fullback for the Gold Coast, but going anywhere trying to pull an upset and missing that weapon of Jaden Campbell is a major loss, and it's going to be hard for the Titans. I think a lot harder to score points than it was last week. It is a huge occasion and huge honour, like a historic game for your club as well, the first involvement in Anzac Day. But it's a tough spot. Like, you're off a couple of games that have gone down to the wire that were there for the taking. You couldn't quite get them. And I also look at New Zealand having been demolished by Melbourne in a lot of these fixtures over many years, and now getting to play the Titans and struggling Titans who, are arguably missing kind of at least two of their best three players. It could line up for a big day out for New Zealand. So I could probably only lay the points, but it's not a short line, is it? Getting over double digits was just enough to steer me off it.
Yeah, I've got a real life analogy for this game, and we all have had a goal before in life, right, that we're working towards and we come short of, and then we've got to pick ourselves up off the canvas and go again. And we all know how it feels when, every time it gets a little bit harder and harder to keep at that goal, whether it's weight loss, saving money, betting, whatever it might be, right? It gets harder and harder to keep getting up for it. Well, the Titans have that times 17 throughout their roster, right? Because their last 3 weeks of footy have all gone 80 minutes. Actually, two have gone a full 80 minutes of competition. The other's gone 90 minutes. And they've been trying so hard for every single minute or majority of the minutes within those contests. So mentally, this is such a hard one for the Titans to get up for again against a side that has a genuine home advantage, particularly when you factor in the travel, the occasion of what it means for the Warriors and their fans here. Historically, the Titans have struggled in New Zealand. They've actually only ever won 4 games at this venue at 31%. Now, they have won 3 of their last 4 against the Warriors, and they almost made it 4 from 4, if not maybe for a controversial send-off to Mweki Fotuaika in round 23 last year. So, where I'm going with that, I'm not being a salty Titans fan, let me finish. The chances that the New Zealand Warriors take them lightly reduce even further because they've been shocked by the Titans now a few occasions. It is a huge occasion for the Warriors. The Titans are still conceding 30 or more points per game, and that's too much against a Warriors side that has plenty of strikes. So, unfortunately, I do think Warriors will beat the Titans by 10 or more here. Winnie, we always laugh, though, at my ability to twist the stats, so I'll finish on this one, and this is pure satire. The Warriors have lost their last 7 Anzac Day games in a row, whereas the Titans are undefeated on Anzac Day with a fantastic 0 from 0 record. All righty, let's move to the next game before the audience shoos me out of here. Thursday, 4:05 p.m. It's Dragons v Roosters at Allianz Stadium, but it is a Roosters home game. The traditional Anzac clash has the Roosters at minus 5.5 favourites. No changes for the Dragons. For the Roosters, they welcome back Dom Young and Sam Walker. This is a massive game on the NRL calendar, and the Roosters have gotten the better of 4 of the last 6 clashes, but the Dragons are coming off a pretty special win at home. But as we know from your best bets, Winnie, you don't think there's another upset on the cards here. You are with the Roosters.
Just to clarify that point, so Dragons are listed first in the fixtures. Of course, it's at Allianz.
Yes, but
what's actually happened there?
So it's just a change. So instead of having Roosters sponsors and stuff around the ground, you'll have Dragons sponsors appearing.
So the Dragons choose to play this game at Allianz?
Oh, I think it's been
because it's their home game.
Yeah, I believe it's been SCG in previous years. Mate, all it'll be is a change of sponsorships, and some Dragons fans would have had early ticket access.
I mentioned that too because, fair enough, the distribution of fans, but the truth is, I guess this type of game will get a bigger crowd than usual. The truth is, anyone that is sold out, right? So maybe you can't treat it like a full Roosters home game because if the Dragons got first crack, it could be a larger distribution of visiting fans than usual. But I just think it could catch people out seeing Dragons listed first, but the Roosters essentially are at home. It's a huge game as it always is, but I talk about you're upgrading your back line, including your halfback. The Dragons are unchanged, as you would expect, with no forced changes and a great effort at home to New Zealand. And I said this coming into the season that the Dragons won't be special, but they won't be as bad as everyone thinks. And I looked back at what have I done in Dragons game this year. And to be fair, I've gone against St. George 3 times and won once but lost twice. And I have backed St. George once we did win. So I guess I'm 2-2 in Dragons games. I'm not biased against St. George. If you want to knock me, you'll certainly tell me I'm biased in favour of the Roosters. And I'm well aware of this trend that I definitely back the Roosters more often than I go against them. But that's just how I see it. I am really high on the Roosters. I think they can dominate the yardage battle, kind of like they did in the Newcastle match, which I think could be the key here, because I think if you look at all the Dragons wins this year, they've won the middle of the field, their forwards have, and I don't believe that will be the case in this game. The Chooks didn't show a lot last week, but I think part of that was just like Melbourne was full strength, Melbourne was bang up for it, and again, you had that suspension/injury disruption to the Roosters. They're in a bit of a better situation this week, and at home under a converted try, I don't think the line stays that way. And in the last few weeks, I've gotten games under a converted try that closed over and it counted for nothing. But let me know if you disagree. I've just got to keep playing it the way I see it. And I think the Roosters should control this game and win it by a converted try at the least.
I'm very interested in that line. It still sits at -6. It's gone to -6.5 already on Top Sport. So it's already moved by 1 point, which, as you touched on at the start of this show, that could be the difference if Roosters were to win by 6 of being a winning bet and a losing bet. So that is actually a bit of an important move there. I'm really on the fence for this one. On one side of the coin, the Dragons are actually a side that's probably in the best form they've been in for a number of years. Like, they've won 3 of their last 4, and the only game they dropped was against the Knights in torrential rain. But on the other side of the coin, I just know the Roosters are far too classy to repeat another poor game and only scored, I think it was 12 points like they did against the Storm. And so that, I think the bookies know it as well. They know that the Roosters are capable of rebounding, and that's why, despite the Dragons being in better form, we have a line against the Roosters here. Part of me says Dragons. I don't know, but I don't really know how to play this one, Winnie. But I did note at the start you said that having Sam Walker back will help the Roosters spread the ball left to right and attack out wide, right? Another factor of that is Michael Jennings has been dropped. Now, it was great to see his comeback, whether you liked it or not. Like, he came back, it is what it is. But he only ran something like 50 meters last week. And I know Suaalii is going to give so much more at left center than that. One man that has struggled recently, you could say, and hasn't had as many opportunities outside of Michael Jennings is Daniel Tupou. Now, he needs 2 tries to reach 150 NRL tries. Winnie, I'm going to back him. I don't know which side I prefer in this one, but I reckon Daniel Tupou scores a double this week with Sam Walker back in the side and with his usual centre partner back. I think he'll be the biggest beneficiary of this. And I suppose if you are going to say Daniel Tupou scores 2, then I probably have to lean with the Roosters as well. So I'll lean the way of the Roosters. Big Daniel Tupou for a double. What do you think about that one?
People could combine my best bet with your liking there. Yeah, if you're picking a player for a double, I think you do know who you like in this one. I think you're with me on the tricolours.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, let's move to the final game of Thursday night. We're at 7:50 p.m. and the Storm host the Bunnies at Amy Park in Melbourne. The line is set at -13.5 against the Storm, who have no changes to their lineup. The Bunnies do welcome back Jai Arrow and Damien Cook. Tyrone Munro is out, so Jacob Gagai comes onto that win. As I said, Winnie, this is the first Thursday triple header that I can recall, and the Storm have a new Anzac Day opponent. They won their last 7 straight over the Warriors. Do you see that trend continuing against the Souths?
Let me first just tell a story about the fact that that Souths are none from 18, the last 18 in Melbourne. So The story is, which I've told before, and people have been in the pod for a while and remember this too, the biggest multi I've ever shared that should have gotten up or would have been the highest paying multi I've ever shared. 600 to 1 was my multi this given round. A few seasons ago now, and it included an $8 leg, which was Souths head-to-head in Melbourne, and Souths were an 18-point underdog. They called me a madman, but long story short, Souths have the ball and a 2-point lead with 90 seconds to go. They pretty much just need to complete their set and kick, and Melbourne would have to score a try to win. The Souths give away a penalty in possession by running an obstruction. Of course, Cam Smith's the smartest player to milk that. Then they've got to defend a set. What do? A dangerous lifting tackle, I think it is, and gives Storm another penalty. Storm kick the penalty, goes to extra time. I could still win. Reno misses 2 field goals. It's not to be, is it? Storm wins that one, as you know, the tail of the tape, and you know that Souths have not won in Melbourne for a long, long time. Despite having some good teams over the years, the silver lining, that was on 365, and people might be aware, you get that extra time, extra chance where they'll result you at 80. So I actually got a push on the South's leg. The multi still paid 80-1. It's the dirtiest you'll ever see anybody to tip an 80-1 multi that got up. As for this game, we have the Melbourne being the masters of the tight win, and they come in full strength again. But it's not a bad spot for the Rabbitohs. Everyone's going to get refreshed off a bye, but particularly with the amount of scrutiny, and the heat almost eased off because they were very brave in that Sharks win. It probably took a little bit of pressure off. Murray has looked banged up. Not only does his body get a chance to rest, but he clears concussion protocol. You recall Cook, who will have a point to prove. Arrow has been missed. Totola's still a major loss. So this side's, not only did they show heart against Souths, but I do really believe Jai Gray added that spark. And I do give Souths a chance in this one. But the problem is the Storm are going really well. The Storm are full strength, you'd say. And while Melbourne haven't put teams to the sword, I actually think it makes it more ominous. Like a good example is last time Melbourne was at home, they were 18-point favourites and won by only 2, nearly lost. Now they're beyond 2 converted tries favourites again. You're not going to underestimate your opponent again. You know, you're not going to take the opponent lightly, despite the fact that Melbourne does nothing but win at home. They know, and they respect Souths too, because Souths have actually been a contender in the last few years. So I do think Melbourne will be at their best and can easily cover this line, but it's probably just a little long. And I'm going to repeat what I've said a couple of times if people haven't caught the recap. Like, Munster doesn't pass the eye test for me. It's not to say he can't have his moments, but he's not the superstar that you might be used to from past years. However, Pappy, Tues, and Grant, they're going as well as anyone at their positions. And what about the South's wingers? Gagai and Tane Milne, they're in for a long night under the high ball and an assault from Coates and the Brickwood tries.
Yeah, that's absolutely right there. We talk about South failing to cover these lines for a long time now. They actually almost covered it against the Sharkies, but I can't remember, someone jumped up and batted it back for Blake Brayley to score in like the final 2 minutes or something, and that pushed the line past 9.5.
That's right. South spilled it. No, and I needed that one. Like, I'll be the first to whinge when I get unlucky, but that was probably our luckiest best bet win of the season. Not from where we were in the game, where Sharks should have won comfortably, but from what we needed to happen with 2 minutes to go.
We definitely got lucky there from a punting perspective. Look, I give South a chance here, but it's only to cover the line. And that's because the Storm haven't been winning by huge margins this year. In fact, their average win margin only sits at 4, so 1 try there. Now, of course, we do keep seeing these big lines against them because the bookies are more than capable. They're more than aware, rather, what the Storm are capable of, and they're kind of waiting for it to really take off. The Storm are aiming for their 14th straight win at AAMI Park, with their last loss at this venue coming round 2 last year. Meanwhile, as you said, the Rabbitohs have legitimately never won a game in Melbourne. They are 0 and from 18. And they have come to this venue with stronger form and stronger sides in the past. So I think if you're tipping South outright here, it's extremely bold, and props to you if you are. But I have to take the Melbourne Storm here. I think they'll be too strong. You touched on the Rabbitohs wingers. I also think that's a little bit of a weak area for them. So in terms of try scorers, you can't go past Xavier Coates, who has scored 25 tries in his past 22 games at AAMI Park. He is on that left wing, and as he's shown the Warriors earlier this year, he quite literally can score from anywhere. But I suspect the odds for him scoring a try winnie will be really, really short. All right, Friday, 8 p.m. We've only got the one game this Friday. It's Manly v Eels. We're at 4 Pines Park or Brookvale, and the line is set at -8.5 against Manly. They welcome back Josh Aloiai and Nathan Brown. The Eels will have a debutant in the halves. It's Ethan Sanders. Keep an eye on him. He is set to sign with the Raiders from next year onwards. Mike Acevo returns, and they're essentially running a brand new bench with Brendan Hands, Makahesi Makatoa, and Kelma Tuolangi. When these sides met recently in round 3, the Eels got the job done there. However, they came into that game with Mitchell Moses. Since then, you'd have to say there's been a bit of a dip in form. So the safe tip here is Manly. Do you see it that way as well?
A dip in form is saying it lightly. My first question, and answer this on the top of your head if you can, is this the first rematch of the season so far?
I think there's been one other.
Played twice this year? Let us know in the comments. That's the beauty of live as well. None that came to mind for me. So, of course, you're going to look at the last matchup. And when two teams are relatively even, I actually always like the side that comes off the loss as well. So you would think that Manly's going to get their revenge here. That was a good day for us last time they met. Of course, Para was the best bet, but also the Winnie's Kitchen hit at 11s there. However, it's a very different Para, as you say. Moses was in too. Funnily enough, how many halfbacks are injured now? Sanders gets a start. Raiders would have wanted an early release on Sanders this week with the Fogarty news. So I don't know if Para finally picks the kid who they know is going out the door, but if it's to spite the Raiders or if it is just out of necessity, I'm not sure. We'll find out how he goes and whether he should have been in the team a couple of weeks ago. Look, I was on Para last week, as we know, and I felt okay at 8-0 and 10-4, and then went to just make a cup of tea, and I was gone away from the TV for about 24 minutes, and I came back, and the Finns had scored 8 tries in that time. So it's tough. Like, what do you make of that? Are you gonna, like, most punters are not going to give Parramatta another chance, and it's not a one-off bad game because they got 40 plus put on them down in Canberra. So it's a really disturbing trend. I am going to suggest that there was a snowball effect because of the extreme conditions in Darwin. And so combined with Para just being kind of shocked that it was a perfect storm and it wouldn't have really mattered whether they lost the game by 10 or by 30. Like, the game had slipped away. They didn't feel they had the capacity to win it. Like, it's still very worrying. But does that prove that this team is a write-off? I'm not going to go that far. They've won 3 games this year, and Manly's won 4, right? I suppose Manly's got the draw in there too. I just think you can potentially play Para one more time, and you have to definitely acknowledge the chance that there are issues underneath, a little bit like Souths, where they kept on falling short of what you'd expect. And so maybe there are issues, like maybe Arthur's starting to lose the locker room. Maybe this team is going to spiral. But I think that's more than factored into the line, well and truly built into this line, because if Para was in good form, this line is going to be under a converted try. So I feel like just that possibility of a blowout and that nobody wants to touch Para, the line's leaked up. And to be honest with you, when I looked at it, I thought 8.5 is a lot of points. And then when I looked across the market and saw better was at 10.5, it's not your favorite play to play, but I always say, if you only play the sides most people play, you have to ask yourself, are most people winning with their punting? And if we know the answer is no, you can't back all the same sides that everyone else is backing. Majority of punters will be on Manly in this one, but a Para side that still has Gutho, Brown, some rep or fringe rep forwards can compete in this one. I actually give Parramatta the chance of an upset because I think it's a pivotal point in their season where it could go one of 2 ways. Like, Arthur could really get a response, and this could be a great game on Friday night. Of course, there is a chance it goes horribly wrong. And, last thing I need is to give out a best bet plus 10.5 and Para goes down by 30 or 40 again, because I'll certainly hear about it. But you can't be, you can call me a lot of things, but you can't call me scared. And I'm not scared of, that possibility. Anytime you take a double-digit underdog, there's the blowout possibility. But I still think that line's gone too far. I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm very interested in this game. Part of me does feel like the Eels will be cooking something special based on their comments at training today, but I'll get to that in a second. I think with what we saw against the Cowboys last week against the Sharks, that really does diminish the Eels' win over them. So if we are looking at the Eels' last 3, it's a win over a struggling side and 2 pretty bad losses, you'd have to say, to the Raiders and Dolphins. So their last 3 doesn't read pretty. Manly's last 3 does read slightly better. They've got a win over the Panthers, which was very impressive. The Titans, where they weren't at their best, but still got the job done, and a draw against the Warriors, which was good in New Zealand as well. But really, as I said, since that Panthers game, we haven't been overly impressed with Manly. They've drawn and they've just got the job done against the last place Titans. Eels do have a
sorry to interrupt you there, because I just missed my notes about Manly. I feel like I didn't say a word about them. Like, for sure they're at home, and I'm not saying that they're not the better team, and I admit that I underestimated them when they went to New Zealand. Like, that impressed me. But just to touch on your point there, Manly was a little bit fortunate on the Goldie too to even win. So some people that might have just backed them head-to-head or didn't watch the game too closely will just think Manly's rolling along pretty nicely, put up 34 points last week. They're not absolutely flying based on last week. They're going to need a higher attention to detail, I think, in this one to make sure they do get the 2 points.
Most definitely. And the Eels actually do have a better record of recent at Brookvale. They've won 4 of their last 5 at that venue. But for me, I just can't see how mentally they overcome what happened with the Dolphins only a week ago. I have to tip Manly here. I think the first half is going to be close and the Eels will be really focused to open the half. But then I think players like Turbo and DC will have their way possibly in the last 20 minutes of that second half. Now, I will admit I was tempted to go Eels with you, Winnie, and I didn't know you were tipping them before the show. Just based on some of the comments we heard from the players today, like we look at Jason Demetrio, who's under pressure at the Souths. I keep saying at the Souths, at the Rabbitohs. And you haven't really heard too many players come out and passionately defend him. Like they have defended him. I'm not saying they haven't, but the passion, like Regan Campbell-Gillard today literally said, put the pressure on us players. I love Brad. I would die for Brad Arthur. Like the Eels playing good clearly do love him. So I don't think there's a chance here that the Eels have lost the dressing room. And such a powerful comment like that, did make me think the way of the Eels. But then I thought, like, you saw Clinton Gutherson against the Dolphins. He is playing busted. That knee is getting drained every week. There's rumors he needs to move into 5'8" because he can't sustain a full season at fullback. And without Mitchell Moses, the next player I'm going to step up for the Eels is Gutherson, who I know won't be at 100%. So I have to lean the way of Manly here, even though there was a few factors that tempted me onto the Eels. And don't forget, for this game, we'll have an exclusive, better same-game multi crafted by Winnie himself. This market profited 20 units in 2023, and we missed a 16-1 chance by one leg last week. Better also provides further NRL talk and tips in the Fox Sports Lab, which you can check out on their YouTube channel each Wednesday. And always importantly, think, is this a bet you really want to place? For free and confidential advice, call the number or visit the website in this show description. Looking forward to seeing what you cook up.
One last thing on that game, Clarkey, because we've got our cameo tip from none other than Nicole at Wiki, who likes a familiar player to score this week after saluting in round 7.
It's a call for Wiki. Finally, something positive last week. You got Hamalo Olukwatu, anytime try scorer. That got up last week. And the toppy 2 out of 3 ain't bad got up as well. So, guys, as always, Google Wiki Linktree, our odds comparison tool, my tips, and our Discord, which is just about to crack 4,000 people finally, hopefully on Anzac Day, actually. So, yeah, you can join in all of that stuff. Guys, I'm going back to the well. Hamalo Olukwatu somehow still $3.70 on 365 again. Amazing value according to his career strike rate, other bookies, and our model. Absolutely love it. Going back to the well, he's looked great this year, and he's up against Parra's weak left edge. They've got, I think, Ethan Sanders, he'll most likely be playing there because Dylan Brown's been on the right, a rookie to run at, and the left centre and winger. That whole edge has been dodgy all season. So pumped. Good luck. Enjoy Anzac Day, 3 games, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Enjoy.
I don't want to talk anyone into a bet or talk anyone out of a bet, Winnie, but $3.70 for Olukwatu does seem pretty outrageous, given how easy he has scored some tries this year. So thank you very much to Nicole for that tip. That's a great tip.
And like, I've taken Parra as a best bet, so I can hardly say like I love that. I don't love anyone to score against him. But the thing is, when Nicole says, the odds are like as juicy as they were last week, the odds are going to be a big function of how likely that team is to win and how likely they are to score tries. But to be fair, Manly are 9.5 this week and they were 8.5 last week. So they're the same magnitude of favourite. So it is every bit as good of a bet last week as it was. Sorry, it is as every bit a good. I'll try that a third time.
I know what you're saying.
Every bit as good of a bet this week as it was last week, given the market. So I just couldn't talk anyone out of it, and it could be a good leg to tie into Manly if you don't see the game the same way I do.
Yep, and I was heartbroken when Olukwatu scored against my Titans last week. All right, let's move on to the Saturday game. The action starts at 5:30 p.m. where the Tigers host the Broncos at Campbelltown Sports Stadium. The line is set at -13.5 against the Broncos, who welcome back Payne Haas, Adam Reynolds, Brendan Piacora, and Dean Mariner. However, Ezra Mem and Selwyn Combo are out. For the Tigers, a debutant on the wing, a player that's played Super Rugby before in New Zealand, Solomon Alamolo, I believe, or Molo. I'm not sure how you pronounce that surname. And I've got here in my notes that it's a difficult line, Winnie, because the Tigers have been fighting and they have been either covering or just missing their head start in these last few weeks. Whereas the Broncos have shown us, particularly last week against the Raiders, they can blow a score out in very quick fashion. So I did have a note here. How do you predict this one? But I know that you prefer the Tigers in this one for the first half. How else are you seeing this one?
As you say, it's a difficult line. Like I want to note that, like Eels Manly, you can get 10.5 or you can lay 9.5. This game, if you like Brisbane, you can play minus 11.5 right now on Toppy. But if you like West, you can play plus 13.5 on 365, and that's $2 as well. So it's juiced, a little extra juice there too. We're going to get to Cowboys Panthers. It's the same deal. You can take not 10.5 or you can lay 9.5. So getting back to that, beating the market and key numbers there, it will land, statistically, it will land like on that key number that's right around the spread every 1 in kind of 15 to 20 times, which is like 5 to 7% of the time, which is a major edge. So basically 1 in every, let's say 1 in every 15, it doesn't matter whether you got the game right or wrong, you will win because you either took the under the 10 or over the 10, depending which direction you like it. And as for whether you're profitable long-term, well, that does more so come down to your handicap. How do the other 14 or 15 occasions go? More of them on your side or the other. So that's up to you to judge. But again, it's the advantage the punters have. It's set up not to be in the punter's favor, but we have the ability to choose when to bet, but also to shop around. So yeah, you're saying it's a tricky line. Like I think Toppy's more so correct than the other bookies that are all above the 12.5. Like I like Wes. And I came into this round thinking I don't think I'll be against Brisbane again, well aware that, I have my tail between my legs going against the Broncos the last 3 weeks. And I knew it would be really unpopular to go against Brisbane. But here we are. I just think that's too many points. I'm looking for teams this year that the public still rates similar to what they've seen in seasons past. And you don't get any lower than back-to-back wooden spoons for West. But when I watch them play, I do see a positive culture change since Benji has been running the show. And I see a team that's really ripping. And I even saw that last week against Penrith, even though they failed to cover the line. I talked about how I hate going against Reece Walsh, but at least I don't have to worry about him second half. I really like what Buller is doing each week. I think he's emerging as one of the star fullbacks of the competition. Reynolds and Haas back. Now, this is a tough one. They are such important players at such key positions. But I could argue as well that maybe the type of players that would improve after a game under their belts. Like, I wonder if there's a rust factor at all with a little bit of a layoff for both players. And if there is a little bit of rust as well, that may manifest more so in the first half. So there were a few factors there where I liked the idea of getting that 6.5 first half, where this line could come in a touch and that wouldn't be available anymore. But it's not going to get to 8.5 because this line's not getting all the way beyond 16. So there's lopsided possibilities in our favour. And again, Tigers not disgraced in recent weeks. Brisbane, yes, you get 2 of your best players back, but it's offset a little bit by the loss of Cobbo and Mam, as I said earlier. And look, tell me if this is just sour grapes, but in the last 3 weeks, Brisbane have scored some pretty freaky tries. I know that that's part of their ability. They've got some freaky players, but I also just will question whether that's sustainable. So again, the line above 12 forced my hand. I'm going to ride with West at Campbelltown, where I've seen in the comments they haven't won for a long time. I don't think that's because they don't play well at Campbelltown. I just think that's because they haven't played well anywhere for the last few years, but they are a better team this year. No one can deny that.
No one can deny that the Tigers are showing improvement every week under Benji Marshall. Here's a strange stat for you. So, as you said, the Tigers, the reason why you don't think they're too flashy at Campbelltown is because they've lost for a while now. How many of their last 5 do you reckon they've won against the Broncos?
At Campbelltown?
No, just in general.
They beat them. I talked about that last week. They beat the Broncos after the heartbreaking robbery in North Queensland. Mm. I also remember going back a little while. You got to remember it was like 2020 when Seabold was at the helm and Brisbane were woeful. And I can definitely remember Brisbane going down to it probably was Campbelltown and getting spanked by West that night. So the way you've led the question in, West have probably won 3 of the last 5.
Yeah, actually 4. And that actually really took me back because, I guess the Broncos have only really emerged these last few years. But yeah, 4 of their last 5. This is where the stats get strange. The Broncos have won their last 7 straight at Campbelltown, and the Tigers have lost their last 9 there. So as you said, I don't think it's anything about Campbelltown. That's just a coincidence with those stats there and a bifactor of the Tigers winning back-to-back spoons. Broncos have looked pretty good in their last two against the Dolphins and the Raiders. I do admit I agree with you that sometimes they are scoring what looks like lucky tries, but their effort is always there from them. That's why they kind of get rewarded. They're always up and around the footy, and when someone makes a line break, someone's always there, and then they're ready for the kick on the inside. Whatever it might be, this Broncos team turn up and play for each other. Meanwhile, the Tigers, they came up with 15 errors last week. I think that'll be an area of focus for them at training. I think that's too high for them to repeat that 2 weeks in a row. So if I had to pick a line here, I actually do prefer the Tigers, but I do admit it is scary tipping against the Broncos, who just have so much strike. It's unbelievable. But it wouldn't be the first time the Tigers have surprised us this year. A change in scenery for the Broncos, who might be a bit uncomfortable, versus a side that is desperate to break a 9-game losing streak at home. I reckon Tigers can cover the line here, Winnie. Like, when I say Broncos uncomfortable, their 2 last games have been great, but they have been at Suncorp at home. And there have been things that have gone their way, such as Jamal Fogarty going at halftime, such as the Dolphins being their new biggest rivals, and they've got to defend their home turf, right? This is a different ballgame.
After 20.
And Hammer went out after 20. This is a different ballgame for them. And I know that's, people will probably laugh and say it's the Tigers. What are you talking about? But this is a bit of a different ballgame for the Broncos. So I'm going to go Tigers here to cover that line. All right, Saturday night, 7:35 p.m., the Cowboys host the Panthers at Queensland Country Bank Stadium in Townsville, and the line is set at -9.5 against the Panthers. For the Cowboys, Jason Taumalolo reverts to the bench. For the Panthers, what's this guy's name? Nathan Cleary comes back in. Don't know too much about him. Seems like a good young prospect. And Taylor May. Back-to-back demoralizing defeats in Sydney for the Cowboys when they return home with their tails absolutely between their legs, and they must now face the 3 times reigning premiers who welcome back their champion halfback in Nathan Cleary. How does this one play out for you? No doubt you with the Panthers?
Yeah, you have to be. I look at North Queensland a bit like the Eels. They couldn't tackle or compete last week, like Para in that second half especially. And the Cows are also a bit like the Eels because they played the Eels 2 weeks ago and it was a pretty tight game, and nobody trusts Parramatta right now. So you have to wonder, you have to at least pose the question, are both these teams going terrible? And that's the only reason Parramatta won. You said it, that North Queensland's result last week takes a bit of the shine off the Eels bounce back the week before. For North Queensland, it's a very simple recipe, right? You've got to learn to defend again, rediscover that toughness that was the hallmark of the 2022 campaign. The tough part is, right, we've got to get our defense right this week, guys. Who are we up against? Well, we're up against the back-to-back-to-back premiers, and Nathan Cleary's back. And while, look, I don't think if Brisbane had to rush their star players in, it's like, that Cleary has not been rushed back at all. This team's just got an absolute luxury, and they're always thinking, many moves ahead. So Cleary comes back. There's no kind of risk there, very, very minimal. And you would expect that Penrith, I was thinking about it too. Would this be just about Penrith's strongest lineup of the season?
Yeah,
because obviously Cleary's been out, but you go before that, Jerome Luai missed a couple early. The Fish was out. So it's
Sorensen.
Like Penrith's probably, Sorensen. So it's like they're as strong as they've ever been. I don't really want to get out in front of that. Cam Smith, the GOAT, says he'll be playing Penrith. And again, he talked about he's played 9.5, but he's seeing 10.5. And I'm the same there. So who do you like? You like Penrith? Play that 9.5. But if you do like the Cowboys, that's actually the side I would play. I would actually take the unpopular and take the 10.5 with North Queensland, because that is a lot of points at home. And the scoreline did flatter Penrith in Bathurst, as I mentioned. And I do think the Cowboys qualify as a good team off a bad loss. But we'll find out, because if the Cowboys get pumped here, then we'll just say the Cowboys were not a good team. So like Parramatta as well, it is a pressure point. And, I'm really keen to see what the response is, because if the Cowboys have any holes, Penrith's the type of side that's going to exploit those.
I've got a question for you around this line here. Now, before we knew Nathan Cleary was officially returning, it was -9.5. I just checked then, it hasn't moved. Is that because the bookies are anticipating he will return or was going to return, do you think?
Yeah, I think he was nearly back last week. So I think it was fairly well understood that he would be back. But it's one of those things, like, why would you play Penrith on a Monday at 9.5 when there's a chance Cleary would be out, when you could wait until he's named and then play the 9.5 and at least be like very confident he's going to play? Your instinct would be, why hasn't the line, gone a little further, as Cam Smith's suggesting it is. But as I say, like, North Queensland definitely still has the ability to be competitive in this one. So double digits, I don't think I'd mess with that. I think play Penrith at the single-digit line if you feel really confident, and if it does go beyond, you've kind of missed the best of it.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to disagree a little bit there. I know that you said in the Tigers game that they were kind of flattered by that scoreline and getting it up and covering the line, but the Panthers do play 80 minutes in a lot of the games. So I actually think that could be in the Panthers' favour, where if we get to the 70th minute here and, they're just on 10 points, they are the sort of team that could go 1-2-3 or at least 1-2 really quickly, right? And blow that line out in their favour. So I have to take the Panthers here. Stats aside, everything you want to talk about, the Panthers are a tough team to tip against under any circumstances. But then you add in the Cowboys' form in their last two, and for mine at least, it does become near impossible to tip them. The Eels, with what we knew either side of that game, are not traveling well. So it was and then you go to the Sharks game as well, and a 36-point loss. Like, it's just demoralizing at this point of the year. No doubt being at home will help the Cowboys, and it is Chad Townsend's 250th NRL game, so there's a big milestone there for them. But they have only won 2 of their last 7 against the Panthers. I don't think they'll cover the line here. I don't think they'll be absolutely blown out of the water. But as I touched on at the start there, I do see the Panthers scoring 1 or 2 from minutes 65 to 80. And I think that could be what pushes the line out. Remind me, the last time these two sides met, I think it was in Townsville, and there was like a heap of injuries. And didn't you say something like either side to win by 1, and then Scott Drinkwater scored a try or something? Something crazy happened.
So the last time these sides met was actually the final round of the season last year. Remember, the Cowboys had to win in Penrith, but Penrith chose to name a full-strength side with the opportunity to win the minor prem and blew the Cowboys away. The time you're referring to, my same game multi with Better did get up, and it was like neither team to score more than 28.5, something like that, or 27.5. I think it was 27.5. Yeah. And it went to extra time, 23-all. And then Drinky ends up scoring a try in Golden Point, and the Cowboys win 27-23. But some people said that the market had moved when they played it to neither 26.5. So that try at the very end of Golden Point cost, I think, another juicy same gamer. I think that's the wild finish you're referring to, yeah.
Yeah, I remember something that just like all you needed was a side to just take the field goal, and it was home in extra time, and it ended up going to a try. Crazy. That is the wild world of betting sometimes. All right, guys, stay with us. We've got 2 more games. Let's go to Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m, where the Dolphins take on the Knights at Suncorp Stadium. The line is set at -6.5 against the Dolphins here. Kurt Donahue returns for them. For the Knights, David Armstrong, I believe his name is. He replaces Kalen Ponga at the back. Dane Gagai is back from his calf injury, and he is the captain. Alrighty, Winnie. The red-hot Dolphins here meet the Knights, who will probably be a little bit shell-shocked, having learned that their skipper and star fullback is out for the next 2 to 3 months. So how do you see this one going?
So I played against the Finns last week, as we've discussed. And one of the key reasons was like 4 or 5 of their major players are out. And it didn't turn out to be that way, but that's sort of like a shell of a team. Like, most sides cannot miss that sort of firepower and still get anywhere near their best game. Yet the Dolphins come up with their best game in club history. How much of that is the conditions on top of an Eels side that was pitiful, that gave up, right? This week, you're getting none of those players back. What did I see? Donahue's on the bench, but like, none of those stars are back for the Finns yet, and they still are over a converted try favourites. It's probably just too long for me to bet my own team. But of course, the reason the Finns are such short favourites here is that impressive performance in Darwin, double up with the Knights have lost KP and falling to the Dogs. So it makes sense that the line needs to significantly be adjusted. But is there a possible overreaction? Do we get that injured player theory of like everyone calls the Knights a one-man team? Well, go out and prove to us that we're wrong, because the last 2 games, Ponga was injured for part of them, and you couldn't muster much without him. I just don't know a lot about Armstrong, but from what I gather, he's not even the first choice fullback for the reserve team. So stocks are kind of limited there for the Knights. They've still got, some solid players in there. This is still the team that ran 5th last year. And I do still think the Knights have a chance to win this game. Like, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. But I think it's a really tough spot in the season for Newcastle. And it would be very demoralising hearing that KP's out for a prolonged period. But you still, even though the Finns looked so good last week, you are still catching Redcliffe Kings at a great time because they don't have their best players available. So I thought this line had to be at least 6, but 6.5, 7, it wasn't enough of an edge either way to play it. I passed, but I would love to hear how everyone else sees it too in the comments.
So David Armstrong this year has played 2 games on the wing, 4 games at fullback. He's come up with 5 tries, 3 try assists, 7 line breaks, and 26 tackle breaks, averaging 136 meters per game. So pretty good stats there, even at the New South Wales Cup level. Now, Winnie, I actually really love your team in this one, and I'm actually a little bit surprised you didn't go them for a best bet. Tell me if I'm wrong about any of these things, because I feel really strongly towards the Dolphins here. All right, the Knights have given up 20 or more points in 5 of their 7 games to open this season, whilst the Dolphins average the highest points scored of any side so far this year at 28 per game. Just looking at that stat alone, adding in the fact we're at Suncorp on a long weekend in what will probably be a sellout crowd, that immediately spells bad news for the Knights for me. Let me add to that, though. They have only won 3 of their last 10 games without Kalen Ponga, so they face a massive uphill battle there. But let me add to that again. It's not just the fact that Kalen Ponga is out. It's the fact the rest of their spine is absolutely not settled. They've had 2 different hookers this year and 3 different halves combinations. Now, the hooker one is fair play because Jaden Bradley was injured. But for Adam O'Brien to be chopping and changing the halves, they're not even settled with each other. So not only have you lost your star fullback that you've only won 3 of your last 10 without, you now have a halves pairing that are playing with a new hooker who was out to start the year injured. And it's just a little bit of a mess around that spine there. So for me, I love the Dolphins. I know I don't give out official tips on this podcast and nothing that I say is tracked officially like your own, but man, I really love the Dolphins in this one. And I feel pretty strongly towards them. Is there anything you kind of disagree with what I'm saying there? Or is it just literally because it's 6.5?
Yeah, I think I'd be on the Dolphins at 5.5. So I guess you can say it is that. And I do think something that you really can't quantify is that these teams are both in opposite trajectories. Like you've got the Knights side that was on such a roll and riding such a wave last year. Would they win like 10 in a row going into finals? And obviously they were all up and about last year. And this year it's just not the same. It's been very hard to replicate. And the Knights haven't ambushed anybody. Whereas the Dolphins ran out of steam last year, weren't too tough to play against, especially towards the end of their first year. And this year they just have a bit more juice. And it doesn't totally make sense to me because they've probably copped as bad injuries as anybody to start the first couple of months. And they had some great recruits, but those guys aren't even there. And yet the team has carried it on. When we see teams have bad games, we always make excuses for them. They're missing this key position, they're missing that, just like we do with Newcastle. But the Finns have just gotten on with it. So I can't disagree with you there. And those are factors that, it's hard to really measure that in terms of point spread value.
Colt likes it as well. I can see his comment there on YouTube. Winnie, guess what minus 5.5 for the Dolphins is on Top Sport?
What, $1.78?
$1.79. It is 1 cent.
Hey, that could still be just a fine play if you like it. I would play that. To respond to some comments, Cam Smith, do we agree Cleary's worth at least 2.5 points? Cleary's worth more than 2.5, but what we're saying is it was already factored into the line at 9.5. So you shouldn't instantly see the line move full 2.5 points would be my response to that. Andrew says, can you bring back the best bet graphic? Look, we haven't posted the best bet graphics on Clarkie's page, but every week I put up the weekly punting thread, which has the record and has every best bet with like a 1 or 2 liner as well. So people who may not have even watched or listened to the show can read like my key points. So it's pretty clear summary of every best bet. And then, of course, the record is also in the description of the preview and of the recap, just in terms of being able to track. We always pride ourselves on being very easy to follow and to track.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are on my Instagram or Facebook right now and you're not sure where you can find all that, search TryPod Punting on Facebook. The group will pop up. Join there, and you can join all those threads that Jacob referenced. Alrighty, Winnie, we got one more game to go. Sunday, 4 p.m. to close the round. The Raiders host the Sharks at GIO Stadium, and the line is set at -8.5 against the Sharkies. For the Sharks, they will be without Braden Trindle, so Daniel Atkinson comes into the halves there, and the Raiders will also be without a half. Jamal Fogarty goes out, so KO Weeks goes to halfback for them there. It is Raiders coach Ricky Stewart's 500th NRL game as a coach here, but it does loom as a pretty difficult task for his troops to make that a win, especially without Fogarty. I did write that before we knew Braden Trindle was out, so I am also interested. I'm going to check if that line has moved, Winnie, but how do you see this one?
So I see it as another rematch. Nobody posed any others, so I think we are right. We have not had any teams meet twice this year, but yet Para plays Manly for a second time, and of course, even more recently was Sharks Raiders, or was that the same afternoon? In fact, in any case, it wasn't that long ago. It was only like 3 weeks ago that Canberra was up 18-0 against the Sharks, but then it swung and suddenly the Sharks were up 30-18. So that was a wild one. That was in Cronulla. This one is in Canberra. However, Fogarty out. That's awful news for the Raiders because I think he was playing as well as I've ever seen him play. Talked about that kicking game. What a weapon it was. Huge shoes to fill for Weeks. And he is a very different style of player. However, if you wanted to spin a positive, it does add even more running threat and athleticism to a dynamic Raiders backline. So I'm keen to see how that plays out. The Sharks have plenty of great athletes in their backline too, of course. But, this Trindle news, does that cause some disruption for Cronulla? It's certainly possible. These two teams had totally opposite results last week as well. Raiders second best up in Brisbane, and the Sharks destroyed North Queensland. But you do expect the Raiders to respond at home. I guess it's a tough one because I see the Raiders as a really high variance team now. They look very young to me. Maybe some veterans in the forward pack, but overall it's a pretty young squad. They didn't handle the adversity well in Brisbane when a couple of things went against them. Should things go against Canberra in this one, I wouldn't be shocked if it spiraled either. So you could see Cronulla, because they're the type of team that can definitely kick you when you're down. But on the other hand, if a couple of things pay off for Canberra, I could absolutely see an upset win too. So it's hard to really judge how this one was going to go. I didn't have a great deal of confidence. That's why I didn't weigh in for a best bet.
I think for this one, you look at the Raiders, they do have a brilliant record over the Sharks in Canberra. They've won their last 4 in a row there. But then the recent 2 encounters have been in Sydney, and that's gone to the Sharks. So if you're looking for a recent edge between the sides, probably not too much you can take from that. For me, for the Raiders, I just think Jamal Fogarty's too big of a blow to overcome. The Raiders' game plan this year, Winnie, is so different to last year. Last year it was grind you down, wear you down, and eventually come over the top through just destroying your middle. This year, it's been young athletic players such as their fullbacks, Ethan Strange at 5'8". Danny Levi a few rounds ago had the best attacking stats for any hooker in the competition. No one would have predicted that. But it all started with Jamal Fogarty's experience, his composure, and his kicking game. That was the glue that tied all these rookies together and allowed them to play their natural game. As soon as you take Jamal Fogarty out, I don't think Ethan Strange will be effective anymore, having to come up with decisions of where to get the team to for 5th tackle, where to kick the football, etc. So I have to say the Sharkies here, they're coming off a bye and then 2 games where they've covered the line in the row there. One against the Rabbitohs, one last round where they absolutely smoked the Cowboys. So I reckon Sharkies will win well here in Canberra. My only caveat, and I agree with you, the reason why I'm going to stay off this one is just the Braden Trindle news. We won't talk about it here, but Dale Finucane retires today, and then the news just gets completely blown and overshadowed by a bigger Sharky story. So really unfortunate situation with the Sharks. I just don't know how they'll respond to that and how Nico will perform with another halves partner. Alrighty, that will just about do our show. We literally ticked over the 1 hour, 1 second mark, as I said. Alrighty. So we do want to stop and say thank you very much to everyone for being here with us for our Round 8 NRL preview and best bet show. We will see you Sunday within 15 minutes of full time to recap everything. Have a great week ahead. And Winnie, over to you for your famous last words.
Thanks to everyone who tuned in. As always, let me know what you thought of the tips in the comments and what you see as the best bets up for round 8, special round, Anzac round. Have a great Anzac day as well, everybody. We'll be back Sunday to recap it, and we hope you all have a great week. Until then,